This week in IT, I look at the most interesting announcements from Build and how Microsoft plans to make it easier for your devices and developers to harness the power of AI in the cloud. Hello, Russell here, editorial director of Petri.com in this life and IT consultant in a previous one. So this week, Microsoft hosted its annual Build conference for developers. Because we cover Microsoft news, we get access to all the press material before the conference. And I was looking through it this week with our news editor, Rabia. And to be honest, none of it really stood out as anything very interesting. Maybe because as non-developers, it's a little bit hard to really grasp how this is going to be useful for you. So to be honest, I wasn't really very excited for the conference this week, and we struggled to really think about what's going to be interesting for our readers. But we both actually sat down and watched Satya Nadella's keynote, and I completely changed my mind about everything that I've just said. So while Satya is never going to be a Steve Jobs, he doesn't deliver the most exciting presentations, it was really well written, and Satya and all the visuals that went with his presentation really helped to bring some of those ideas and new technologies alive. If you didn't see it, then I really encourage you, after you've seen this video, of course, to take a look at Satya's full keynote. It's really worth sitting down for that full hour, and it wasn't boring at all. I didn't fall asleep. It was really interesting, actually. And then you can also have a look, if you want, at the analysis that Mary Jo Foley and Paul Farrott did, which is also really quite interesting. But one of the announcements that really seemed to get people excited was Project Volterra. Now, I heard some really stupid things about this, some things that are just inaccurate. So one guy on YouTube was saying that Microsoft is going to ditch Intel and they're going all out on ARM, and Project Volterra is basically designed to compete with, M1 Macs and all the rest of it. I don't think that Project Volterra is in any way whatsoever intended to compete with the M1 Macs. Now, this is a new device. It's a small box, which, to be fair, does look like an M1 Mac. It's ARM based, and it also comes with a neural processing unit, or NPUs. If you're not familiar with that, of course, you've got CPUs, GPUs, and NPUs. So these NPUs are now starting to appear in more mobile devices than ever before. So the Google Pixel, I think, has some kind of neural processor, and I'm pretty sure the M1 Macs do as well. So this is where things are heading. Now, this is not so common in Windows devices at the moment, hence the need for Microsoft to release this device, currently called Project Volterra, which is intended for developers. So this comes with a full ARM-based stack of tools that will allow developers to really explore all of this stuff on ARM with the NPU. Now, in conjunction with this, Microsoft is developing something called Hybrid Loop. Now, this is a pattern for developers that will basically allow them to harness the power of AI in the cloud, then hand off the final stages of generating whatever needs to happen locally to that NPU. So, for instance, Microsoft demonstrated things like unlocking your device with a face recognition, so with a webcam. Now, a CPU, that's going to take quite a lot of processing power to do that, and of course it has a big effect on things like battery life. But an NPU, now it can do that no sweat whatsoever, because it's designed specifically for that task. So it's great for efficiency on the local device. And Project Volterra, it's for developers. It's not intended to compete with the M1 Mac, and it's really to help them start to discover the possibilities of what they can do with these NPUs and AI processing in the cloud, all at the same time, blurring the lines, if you like, between where the processing actually happens. Does it happen locally? Does it happen in the cloud? Going forward, it shouldn't really matter. And the benefit for you as an end user is that you'll be able to feel the benefits of that huge processing capacity in the cloud, of course, and see the results on your local device. So you'll be able to do things that were just not possible and are still not possible on a local device today, because of course you just don't have the processing power and capacity to do it there. Now, in amongst all of that, Satya mentioned that Microsoft is in the process of creating an AI supercomputer, and it's based on Windows, and at the moment it has 50 times more GPU capability than the world's fastest AI supercomputer. So I'd say they're doing pretty well with that. And all this stuff that they're working on with AI, all this hybrid stuff, all the stuff to do with MPUs as well, this isn't just about Windows. All of this technology developers will be able to harness on Windows, Android, iOS. And in fact, Microsoft is doing the exact opposite of ditching Intel. They want to make Windows an open platform so that it will run on ARM, x64, RISC, and whatever kind of processing platform that you can throw on it, they want Windows to be able to run on it. Another announcement that people seem to get really excited about was Azure Dev Box. Now, this is a new service that's going into preview shortly, and what it's going to do basically is provide developers with a Windows 365 cloud PC already set up with all the tools and things that they need just to get going. So when they get a new box, they don't have to sit there and go through everything and configure all of their tools, get it all installed, configured, exactly the way that they need it to work. This new PC you'll be able to access through a browser, and the cloud PC will give you access to much more power than you would ever have, of course, on your local device. So developers seem to be really excited about this. It seems like a great idea, of course. The question is, we don't know how much this is going to cost. So really, it all depends on the pricing at this stage. Also, while we're still talking about developers and the cloud, Microsoft announced that GitHub Cospaces and Copilot are now generally available. And of course, they were first announced at, I believe, last year's Build conference. And they look like amazing tools to help programmers speed up the development process. Now, there wasn't a huge amount of news about Windows, and of course that's expected. This is a conference mainly for developers. But one thing they did announce is that Windows is getting third-party widgets coming later in the year, I believe, and they're going to be based on Microsoft's adaptive card technology, which it uses heavily inside of Microsoft 365. So, I don't know whether that rocks your boat or not. It doesn't really excite me very much, to be honest. I thought that the widgets panel in Windows 11 seemed to be quite a good idea. I never really liked the idea of widgets on the desktop. I never see my desktop. It's always covered by applications. The start menu, well, okay. Live tiles didn't really take off. And the widgets panel seemed to me like kind of a second desktop where you'd put those kind of things where you want to see information about news or, maybe important now third-party apps. It might be useful to see some specific pieces of information. So I don't know. Are people using this? Let me know what you think about widgets in the comments below. I'd really love to know whether you think this is a real goer or not. Now, something that was supposed to be made available in November but was announced with general availability this week is .NET MAUI, I believe it's pronounced. Now, this is basically an evolution of Xamarin. I think it's called Xamarin Forms, and it basically allows developers to create apps for Android, iOS, and Windows and target all of those platforms with the same code. Now, I don't know how efficient those apps are created by .NET MAUI, how well this technology works, but, well, again, as a non-developer, it seems exciting and I would hope useful. Another general availability announcement that was made at Build this week was Azure Container Apps. Now, this is Azure's serverless container app solution. And while it may seem that, well, surely, I don't know, Amazon has had this for a long time, this has been in preview in Azure for a long time as well, Microsoft says that it's able to differentiate this service as the only serverless container solution that supports confidential CPUs and GPUs from Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA. So hopefully that will give Azure a security advantage going forwards. So another general availability announcement, and that is for Azure Stack HCI single node. Now, if you're wondering what Azure Stack HCI is, it's an operating system. So you can install it on your own hardware, and basically what it provides you with is a mini Azure in your own data center. Now, of course, going forwards, this is really what Microsoft wants you to install on any hardware that you have on premises. It doesn't want you to install Windows Server. It wants you to install Azure. Now, of course, in order to use this, you need to have an Azure subscription. It, of course, allows you to spin up Windows Server virtual machines on top of the Azure Stack HCI base. And there are all sorts of other services like Azure Arc that allow you to manage your on-premises servers and applications and all that kind of stuff, but also if you want to connect to the cloud as well. So you can use this in a hybrid setup. You can use it to manage the on-premises data and applications that you don't want to move into the cloud. This is really an evolution of Windows Server, if you like. Microsoft doesn't really talk about Windows Server very much anymore. It's all about, of course, Azure and the cloud. You can see that in its certification program. Windows Server, Active Directory, it's all just part of the bigger scheme of things these days. So why is this important? Because of the single node release. So in the past, you needed at least 2 nodes, I believe, in order to run Azure Stack HCI. Now, if you just have one device and you don't have the budget for a dual node configuration, that of course leaves you with a problem. Also, in terms of being able to run and test this for people that want to play around with it, assumedly you can install this in a single virtual machine. But I think this is a great development. It brings more flexibility for small businesses that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford the kind of hardware that will be required to set up a 2-node cluster for Azure Stack. Now, of course, there were loads of other announcements at Build this year, but these are the things that came to my mind as the most interesting. There were all sorts of things connected to artificial intelligence, to data, things like Purview and all of the services around intelligent data management, just a whole host of things that are really interesting. So if you want to see more about what I've described today, especially things like Project Volterra, how all that's going to work, Azure Dev Box, all those exciting things connected to artificial intelligence. I'm going to link to Satya Nadella's keynote at the end of this video, so be sure to click on that and sit down and have a look. If you found this video useful, then please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more of this weekly roundup of news, then please subscribe to the channel. That's it from me for this week, and I'll see you next time.